This is a show about guiding the human spirit and inquiring minds. On our programs, we have scientists, subject matter experts, and practitioners regarding consciousness and the mind-body-spirit connection. Today, we are privileged to have Atala Toy as our guest, and Atala is an accomplished interdimensional communicator, author and nature spirit photographer, and also the founder of Crystal Life Technology store in Geneva, Illinois. Atala, tell us a little bit about how you got started in this field.
Well, I was brought up as a Quaker, so I always believed in the inner spirit. And when I grew up and I was working at the United Nations, I actually got quite sick from environmental issues, from electromagnetic frequencies. And the doctors couldn't find any way to heal me. And at that point, Spirit came and said, well, we can help you. And at that point, I was ready to listen to anything.
Okay.
A group of archangels called the Melchizedeks started to work with me, and they helped me to heal myself. And then they went on to teach me about how on Earth we really are an interdimensional platform in which we can communicate with all the different species. We used to be able to do that, and we humans have just forgotten how. And they started teaching me how to communicate with rocks, trees, angels, ETs,
How did you know about these angels? How did you know?
Well, many of the people who've had life-threatening illnesses, I was filled with 90% radiation, and I was told I was going to die. So at that point, when the doctors can't do anything, very often when you pray for help, the universe answers, and the universe answered. And of course, being human, when it answered, you think, oh, this is a trick, or my mind's playing tricks.
I've had that experience, yeah.
Yes, you know, and we all do. And a real bona fide spirit guide will give you a series of tests, because real spirit guides are real life forms in other dimensions, and they have a certain set of tasks and abilities. And so when you're working with a spirit guide, if you were, for instance, a lawyer, you wanted to learn law, you would have guides that are in law. If you were in medical, you might have medical. I happen to be working with subtle energy and consciousness, so those are the guides that I related to. So we set up a series of tests. And because when they started talking to me, I said, well, how do I know you're real? And they said, well, the first test that we had was, well, if we tell you what you're going to be doing next Thursday at 2 o'clock, and we're right, will you believe us? And I said, well, what am I going to be doing next Thursday at 2 o'clock? And they told me I was going to be doing something mundane but unusual, because I was working, so I was supposed to be at work. And I said, well, you're going to lose, but okay, you know, then I'll prove that you're fake. But about 2:15 on Thursday, I was doing what they said I was going to be doing. And this little voice said, well, and I went, okay. So through a series of tests, and I always encourage anybody who's working interdimensionally to set up with your team tests. And if they can meet the parameter of a test that they say that they can meet, then you have a pretty good feeling that you're working with a real life form. If they come to you and they say, you know, work with us and I'll make you the richest, most famous person, you know that's not a real guide.
Okay.
So that's pretty much the parameter I usually tell people. And also, when you start working interdimensionally with a guide, and they do meet the test, then you're obligated on your side to have faith in them and start working in an attitude of faith. and this grows over time. Like you learn, you can still override your guides. If for instance, you really, 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 you were dating and you really wanted this guy to like you, okay? And you said, I know he likes me, I know he likes me. What do you say? And your guides are saying, yeah, he really likes you. And then he doesn't. He goes off and dates somebody else. And you say, I knew you weren't real. Well, they're real, but you were overriding. Your mental proclivity was overriding their message. So you have to learn to be detached.
And just get into the flow of that vibration. So,
Exactly.
Okay. Okay, and to trust that.
Right. So you're working from a state of detachment and a state of non-harm, so of ahimsa, because these guides, I work now a lot with nature spirits. I particularly like to work with the green men. So when I started, what my angel guides did was they taught me, and then they asked me to take what they were teaching me and to make it linear so humans could understand. Because interdimensionally what they do is they deliver a packet of information called a Merkaba.
Okay.
So inside, and this is how you can communicate with anyone throughout the universe. It's a universal language. It's done in packets of information. It's like geometrics that are packed in there, and they send that consciousness. And then if you can connect to that frequency, if you can adjust to that frequency, you get the message.
How does one adjust to that frequency? How do you know how to do things like that?
Well, you know, that's one. I think I'm going to appear in your show later on dowsing.
Okay.
And that's a system of dowsing where you're actually dowsing frequency, and you're finding where it is that life form lives. So and that's how that's done.
Okay.
So you take this packet of information that you're given, but when we come down to Earth, we're in the third dimension, and we're linear. We have to receive things in a linear manner. So it was my job, and in my first book, which was We Are Not Alone. This one, We Are Not Alone. It's called A Complete Guide to Interdimensional Communication. I'm taking the information they gave me and making it linear so you can understand how Merkabas work, how sacred science works, how intergalactic politics works, that whole realm.
I don't have that one yet, so I'm going to have to get
You'll have to get that. People really like it. New people say that it's a very easy read, and people who are experienced say they can read one paragraph at a time, and then they have to study it. So it works on both levels.
Okay.
Then after I learned how to communicate, the next thing that they asked me to do is to work on with Earth, with the nature spirits, with trees, rocks, animals, land. And again, that's something where I did a lot of dowsing to learn how to work with that. And your folks should watch that show. Okay. But that ended up with my second book on consciousness, which is Nature Spirits, Spirit Guides, and Ghosts.
Okay.
And this one is how to actually connect to rocks and trees. They're very intelligent. We're meant to help them. We're meant to work with them. They're meant to help us. And at one time, we used to be able to communicate. So the old Druids and a lot of the native traditions around the world where they talk about interconnecting with the fairy folk or the nature folk, they're really real.
Okay. I remember the first time I met you, I was at Whispering Acres Horse Farm.
Yes.
And I was trying to sense a vortex, because this was totally new to me. I had no idea what I was doing. And I was standing there in that spot where everyone else was really sensitive and awestruck, and I didn't know what I was doing. And you said, why don't you go over there into the woods and communicate with the nature fairies? You're more on their vibration. I thought, And I did. And it's just been, I don't know how to explain it, something that has been a part of my life ever since, okay? When I get upset about something, I hear these little words in the back of my mind saying, you can do it, we can help. And it's like an invitation to come sit in my garden and be surrounded.
So how did that feel when you first went out and you first made contact?
Well, in the woods, I had no idea what I was looking for. And I kept looking for something logical, okay? And I didn't have any sense of that. But then at other times, when I was gardening, I would hear, Mom, we need more water. And I was going like, what? And they say, we understand you're busy, okay? And I would go, I'm sorry. And I would address that. And I was going like, okay, I'm a crazy garden lady. And I didn't understand, but I just went with the flow. As long as nobody else was hearing me, I was good. And then I had all sorts of other nature type experiences. One time I let my cat out in the back patio, and a couple minutes later she came scratching back at the patio door, terrified, and there was, my whole maple tree in back was filled with hundreds of robins and doves. And they were squawking like crazy. And I had no idea why they were there, but I've never seen any birds congregate like that in my entire life. And I just felt, honored or blessed that they were there. I don't know why they were there, but I just felt.
You know, rocks, trees, animals, plants, they all have a certain frequency. And very often, if you have a weed growing in your yard that keeps coming back, if you check out what that weed is used for medicinally, you're going to find that it's something that you need for your system. And if you have different animals that appear in your life, such as a whole tree full.
I mean, this was, you couldn't even see the leaves. It was just, they were just.
And what kinds of birds?
Robins and doves.
And so robins and doves. And was this at a time when you were perhaps starting into one of your activities that you're now involved with, the ions, or?
This was about 3 or 4 years ago, so it was before that. Yeah, just a little bit before that, right.
So that might have been a harbinger for what you were going to do, because the doves are peace and working with peace, and the robins are harbingers of new spirit, new energy. So to have that much, it was probably just a energy coming into your life that there was no escaping.
Yeah, I felt that. And every time a door opens, I walk through it, and just more and more doors open, and I have to ask Spirit to, okay, let's get, I'm sorry, Comcast, let's get away from Xfinity and go to Uverse, because I can't operate that fast. I can't process all this in. Yeah. So, yeah, and they accommodate me, yeah.
Well, so you're asking Spirit to please go a little slower to give you the information.
Right.
This is something I tell my students in workshops, is when you're starting to work with Spirit and Spirit guides, actually our spirit, when we come into Earth, we come in with an angel, we come in with guides. They're always here for us. We tell them, when you're a little baby, you see the babies looking like this and talking to someone. Well, they're talking to their guides. As they get a little bit older and their parents say, you know, this is just pretend, you don't really see it, it's just your imagination, stop it, then you shut it down. But they're always there waiting for you to help you, and they help you in hidden ways. You know, they might put the thought in your mind that you think it's your thought, or they might tell you don't take that route to work because you could have an accident. So they're always around. So when you first start, and we might have done that in this workshop you took, when you first try to connect with them, if you get like a ringing in your ears or it sounds clogged, it's often your guides trying to talk to you and you're not hearing it. So they're trying to push the information in very hard. And what you need to do is get very quiet and you say, all right, I know you want to speak with me. Please go slower and change your frequency, because they're coming in at this frequency and you're at this frequency.
Okay.
So then they'll modulate their frequency and they bring it down, and then when you can connect, you'll start to hear them.
Okay.
So this is something that I tell students that they should be doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Several years ago, I went to a book signing by Alison Dubois, and she was signing the books. I asked her, what should I read in order to develop some skills in channeling? And so she recommended a book, and I was reading it and laying down on the sofa and following the directions in my mind, and I could see, spirit guides coming up. And as I was doing this, I was just so awestruck that I could visualize this. My cell phone rang, and I just tapped it and ignored it. And then I was doing it again, and it rang again. And this time I looked at it, who it was, and it was Galaxy Construction Company. Okay. So I think they have a sense of humor. Okay.
Guides have a great sense of humor. It's really wonderful, especially because when they first start to contact you, and usually they're going to contact you when you're ready, and you're just new, and of course we humans get very serious about this. Oh my God, there's an archangel talking to me. I better behave. And what they do is they start telling you jokes. And they tell you jokes because from their point of view, this is natural and normal, and this is the way you're supposed to be. So they do it to lighten us up. So,
okay.
And all of us who all of us who are working with guides can tell you a lot of stories about the jokes that they tell. So that's good. That's one way you know that they're real.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Now, how can you know whether, like you mentioned, tests from the guides? I know 3 of them feel good, but one of them I'm not sure about. And I think she calls herself Judy or Judith. So how do I know whether or not to be sure? Because I haven't had that the confidence.
Well, one of the things I always recommend is that you get very quiet. You sit down quietly and you go inside yourself. And you see in your heart center, because this communication takes place in the heart. You might hear it up here, but it's at a universal heart level.
Okay.
So when you sit inside your heart, see a round table. You're sitting at a round table, and you're going to sit with your guides and your colleagues. They're not superior to you, and you're not superior to them. You're a team.
Okay.
And then you ask your guides to come in, and they'll come in, and you look at it as a clock. Who's at the 12 o'clock, who's at the 6, who's at the 3, who's at the 9 position. Those are the cardinal positions. They're the most important. Then the other positions will fill in.
With other guides?
With other guides, yeah. You have a lot. You have animals, birds, fairies, lots of people who are in there. It's a very busy universe. Once you start doing this, it's quite busy. So you want to see where you're seated, and then you want to see who's seated at the other positions. Then what you need to do is you need to see where that little guide is, that person who helps you, that spirit guide, that's hiding in the dark. And this could be part of your shadow self. This could be someone who you've rejected because you didn't want to deal with, like picking up your room. You don't like picking up your room. So
that's a big issue for me, yeah.
Oh, all right. So the person who says pick up your room, you're going to send off there.
Okay.
And then what I always recommend is that you apologize to those that you've rejected and ask them to please come forward and sit at the table. Oh. And so when you have other guides around and then you see someone come in, like Judith, the other guides are protecting you. So you don't have to worry if you have those guides around. They're setting a protective environment in which someone that you haven't paid attention to or you've rejected, some aspect of yourself you've rejected, is coming forward. So you want to get very quiet. And oftentimes, when it's someone you've rejected and it comes to you, you get very agitated, and then your agitation makes them look dark when they're not really. So you want to get very quiet and call in your other team, call in your team, they're all around you, and then you say to this one, who are you and what do you want? And then you listen like you would to a child. You just listen. And the quietness of listening quiets them. They know they're not, because they're obligated to get their message to you, and you're not listening, so they're fighting you to get that message to you.
I find myself continually blocking it out because it frightened me.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And you know what happens when you say, who are you, what do you want? You usually find someone who's very timid or who has a very gentle and has a message, and they they're obligated by their system that they're in to be in service to you. You made that bargain with them outside of Earth, and they are trying to fulfill it. And as soon as you see them, they calm down, and then you can see who it is, and you can deal with the situation.
Okay.
So, so that's wonderful. That's a wonderful example of how we become complete in our consciousness, is listening to them.
Listening to them. Okay. You take wonderful, wonderful photographs.
Thank you.
And I'd like you to explain how you see all of these dimensions, all of these beings, and how can you get them to sit still for your photograph? Okay.
All right. Well, and that is, in this book, I explain how to do it, and I have some photographs. And then in this book, Nature, Spirit, and American Trees, I actually just filled it full of the different photographs.
Can you hold some of those up for us that we
Certainly.
can and tell us a little bit about them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I love wood elves. So I have a lot of pictures of wood elves. And this is a lady, and this is a merchant. And what they are is, so I've showed you these. Now I'm going to explain to you how it works, all right? So what happened in the very beginning was I was up at my family's home in New Hampshire, which I share with a gnome, my particular one, all right? How do I know it? Because he keeps telling me. And when I go up every summer, I tell him, you're in the garage until I leave, and then you can have the home again. So we have this agreement. So one year when I came up, he came out.
Why do you have them in the garage rather than the home?
Well, because I said, you nasty old man, this is my house.
Okay.
I want to relax here. You go into the garage.
Causes too much mischief?
Yeah, you know.
Okay.
When I'm done here, you can come back and you can have the house.
Okay.
But it's my house while I'm up here. It's your house the rest of the year. So this time, but we get along he understands, and we get along very well with that. So one year I came up and he said, sure. He says, hey, would you like to go out and take a photo of a wood elf? And I went, whoa, actually a moss fairy, a picture of a moss fairy. And I went, sure. Now, I didn't take photos because my mother was a professional photographer, so I didn't do it.
Part of that.
So I took my little point and shoot, and he psychically, I could see him. He led me down and in through the woods and into an area where it was all beautiful moss fairies. And he said, I couldn't see it at that time. He said, all right, now sit here and take the photograph. So I sat down and I took photographs, and I just kept taking photographs. And then we went back to the house, and then I put it on the computer, and then I went, seriously? This is a picture of woods, and how am I supposed, I don't see any moss fairy anywhere. And he said, oh, all right, just keep going. So we went through, and about, 18 into the 32 or so I take, and he said, this one. And I went like, what? It's a bunch of trees and leaves. And he said, oh, all right, go up. Now make it larger. And then when I did that, I had photographed a moss fairy. And
Do you have a picture of
I
it?
do have a picture in here, and you can show that to your friends, right here.
You can hold that up.
Yeah. And it's in this one. This was before I could take any photographs, and the moss fairy is right in here. He has a little pink shirt, he has white pants, and a little...
Okay.
Is that not amazing?
That's amazing. I'm going to
Yeah.
have to figure out how to zoom in on that later
Oh,
on.
okay.
Yeah.
So that got me hooked, obviously.
Okay.
And this is a picture of the gnome that I took later. He imprinted himself in the tree that was outside it.
Oh.
So here's the gnome. Now in a white,
It's like a selfie, huh?
It's a gnome selfie, right? And it's in a white pine. The white pines they incise. In a bur oak they do burrs. Different trees have different ways that they're. So that was my start, and then after that, the nature spirits and the archangels asked me if I would please, since I had the capacity to see these, would I please take photographs to prove to other people that they're real. And I did that, and now I teach other people. And as soon as in energy work, it really works best when somebody shows you how.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you get the frequency, you get it and you can do it yourself. So we have a lot of people now who can take nature spirit photographs, and I actually have a blog on my website every Wednesday on crystallife.com. There's called From Your Friends on Wednesdays, and people around the world send in photographs of nature spirits.
It's awesome.
And
Yes.
we print those.
Okay.
So we publish them. And then once a year we have a nature spirit photo contest. This is our 5th annual one. Last year we had over 600 entries.
Where do you have that? Do you
Well, that is held, they usually send them emails. We print out the winner, and they receive a cash award, and then all October, which we call Spirit Month,
Okay, 1 minute.
which we call Spirit Month, at our store in Geneva, these are on display.
Yeah.
So people can come and they can see them. They can come on our website and they can see them as well.
Well, it's been wonderful having you here. I mean, this is an area and a topic that I am not familiar with, and you've been so enlightening. So people can learn more about you from the crystallife.com website?
That's correct,
Okay,
right.
great.
You have lots of places there where they can explore.
Thank you again
Oh,
for
thank you
coming
so
out
much
and
for
talking to
inviting
us.
me.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate that.
Are we done?